Basically everyone on Earth over the age of 18 at some point has used an ATM. It's the main way that physical cash moves between banks and individuals, but very few people actually know how the idea came to be. And the story isn't as straightforward as you might think. The ATM didn't just have one creator. Instead, it was the result of a messy chain of inventions and failed experiments. In this video, we'll be exploring how the ATM was invented, from the first deposit-only prototypes in New York to the first cash dispensing models in London, and how it helped establish a global network that made 24/7 banking possible. And 1960 was the year it really started. An Armenian-American immigrant named Luther Simjian invented what is considered by many as the first true ATM, or at least he introduced the idea. Simjian's idea was to create a hole-in-the-wall machine that would allow customers to make financial transactions. His first machine was called the bankograph. Patented in 1960, it was an automatic deposit machine that accepted cash and check deposits at all times during the day. An automatic camera inside the machine took snapshots of the deposits and gave copies to the customers as receipts. The market saw utility in his creation, and it was introduced in 1961 to a few Citibank lobbies in New York City. But after only around 6 months, the bank discontinued its use due to limited appeal. The main issue with the bankograph was that customers didn't really trust it to handle their money, so banks weren't enthusiastic about it. Simjian later wrote in his autobiography, "It seems the only people who were using the machines were a small number of sex workers and gamblers who didn't want to deal with tellers face to face, and the bank said there was not enough of them to make the deal lucrative." In other words, the world's first ATM didn't actually work because no one wanted to use it. So the bankograph quietly disappeared, but it planted a seed, and the idea of automating banking stuck around. After all, if vending machines could sell you a soda or a candy, why couldn't they also dispense cash? That was the exact thought of Scottish engineer John Shepherd Barron one day in 1967 while he was taking a bath. A few years prior, in the 50s, after returning from World War II, John got a job working at De La Rue, a company that specialized in printing banknotes for the British government. One Saturday evening in 1965, he showed up to his local bank just 1 minute after closing time, and the doors had already been locked. Frustrated that access to his own money depended on him showing up to the bank during their open hours, the idea had stuck with him. Shortly afterwards, in June of 1967, the first De La Rue automatic cash system, or DACS machine, called the Barclay Cash, was installed outside of the Enfield branch of the Barclays Bank in northern London. The DACS was actually a really sophisticated machine for its time. Customers would be given a paper token from a teller. This token resembled a check that was impregnated with the radioactive isotope carbon-14, which the machine was able to detect. The amount used was small, so it was considered harmless, about the same dose as eating a banana. When the token was inserted into the machine, it registered the C14 signal in the right position, and the machine knew that the token was genuine. The user would then enter a personal identification number on a keypad, and the machine matched the radioactive token's signature with the correct PIN to verify identity. Initially, a PIN length of 6 digits was proposed. John tested this system on his wife Caroline, but found that the longest string of numbers that she could remember was 4. As a result, 4-digit PINs were chosen, becoming the world standard. The DACS was clunky, mildly radioactive, and far from perfect, but it worked, and the banks saw the potential. The DACS proved that a machine could actually hand out cash on demand. The question now was, who would be the first to take it global? Across the Atlantic, another engineer was working on his own version, one that would introduce the ATM to America. His name was Donald Wetzel, and he was a former Navy radar technician who served as the vice president of a Texas company called DocuTel, a company which developed automated baggage handling equipment. One day in 1968, while standing in line at a bank in Dallas, the idea came to him and he got to work. Along with 2 other inventors listed on the original patent, Tom Barnes, the chief mechanical engineer, and George Chastain, the electrical engineer. Together, they conceptualized and perfected the idea, spending over $5 million to develop the machine. The first DocuTel ATM ended up being installed on September 2nd, 1969 at a chemical bank in Rockville Center, New York. The bank even ran an advertising campaign declaring, "On September 2nd, our bank will open at 9 a.m. and never close again." Unlike the DACS radioactive voucher system, the DocuTel machine relied on plastic cards with magnetic strips and a pin, the basic formula that we still use today. The problem was that each card was single use. After one withdrawal, the card was useless and was discarded. They would iterate on this design through the 70s, eventually upgrading the machine to accept regular bank cards with magnetic stripes. Chemical Bank rolled out the machines to more branches, and other US banks started buying DocuTel ATMs. DocuTel became the first dedicated ATM manufacturer in the world. And globally, banks in Europe and Japan started to catch on fast. In Europe, Barclays worked with De La Rue to make improvements to the DACS that mirrored the innovations that DocuTel had made, and in Japan, Omron and Fujitsu built models for Japanese banks tailored to local banking needs. ATMs were no longer just a gadget, they were becoming essential, and it became an arms race. Banks realized that if they didn't offer 24/7 service, they'd lose customers to other banks that did. By the early 2000s, ATMs were everywhere, with a retail bank research survey reporting an estimated 1.5 million ATMs worldwide by 2005. But in more recent history, the usage of cash has been declining, and with that, the usage of ATMs has gradually been declining as well. In the United States, the number of ATMs has dropped to around 451,000 in 2022, down 4% from the peak of 470,000 machines in 2019. The machine that once symbolized 24/7 access to money is slowly being used less and less. And just like ATMs replacing the teller, cards and phones have begun replacing the ATM. During the 80s and the 90s, credit and debit cards became the standard way to pay and move money from person to person. Eventually, contactless and chip cards made transactions faster and more convenient. Because the payments industry is constantly evolving, the past few years have seen the rise of entirely non-physical banking. Apple Pay, Google Pay, and Samsung Pay have ballooned in popularity due to their convenience, allowing people to go about their day without having to carry a wallet. These payment methods are extremely popular with Gen Z and millennials, with only around 25% of them using cash for any of their transactions. And Amazon has begun experimenting with biometric payments, allowing customers to shop at Whole Foods and pay using their palm or wrist to identify themselves and charge their account. All these changes have led to a significant reduction in the usage of ATMs over time. In 2024, only 14% of consumer transactions were made using cash or checks, a significant drop from 28% in 2017. But it's not just a reduction of ATM usage, but also physical banks as a whole. Since 2018, the US has seen an average of about 1,646 bank branch closures every single year, with the total number of commercial bank branches falling from 82,000 in 2012 to 70,000 in 2022. The ATM and in-person banking industry as a whole appears to be headed towards a hybrid future, with many banks still keeping ATMs with extra functions, such as video tellers, check imaging, and digital account services. So while the ATM might not be as central to our everyday life as it used to be, its impact was big. It was the bridge between the old world of bank tellers and physical cash and the new world of instant digital transactions. From carbon-14 vouchers to magnetic stripes to Apple Pay, every step of the journey has changed how we interact with money. And just like the ATM story, the rise of the credit card is another key chapter in how our world of payments was built. You can watch that video next. Hey, if you made it this far into the video, I want to thank you for watching. My name is Nick and I'm the creator of the Heavy Signal YouTube channel. On this channel, I talk about business topics. I break down a ton of legacy brands, industries from automotive to tech to retail and more. So if you're interested in watching more content like the video you just saw, definitely consider sticking around. See you in the next one.